Imagine giving a 5-minute speech and then watching your entire life and career change. It's been 6 years since Zanele Njapha, then primary school teacher, and now the UnLearning Lady, won Speaker Factor. And she's since not only built a thriving, award-winning brand and business, but shows no sign of slowing down. Here to share her journey since that fateful day and the key shifts that made all the difference, with the talk that started it all, a Speaker Factor success story, please help me welcome Zanele Njapha.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please say yes for me if you were in the room when I delivered that talk. Say no for me if you weren't. Okay. Say oh if you actually don't care. Because that's a thing, right? Some of us actually just don't care. Also say if you're one of those people that just don't respond regardless of what the speaker does. Because we all have those, right? So the picture you see on the screen, you know when you watch those, and I'm not going to say old movies because what's old for me, it's all relative, right? So I've kept it that way just so that we can see how long ago that was, 2019, when I delivered that talk. And since then, so much has happened. The journey has been wild, literally. But what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to share quick snippets of how it all started and just to give you an idea of some of the key insights and lessons that I have learned on that beautiful journey that I think is only just beginning. So where I want to start it off is I started professionally, my career originally is in primary school teaching. Raise your hand if you're also a past teacher, because I know I'm not the only one. Yes, I love it. And that's where I am. And nowadays it's funny because I get my audiences, when I share it with some of them, often the comment I get is, oh, Zanele, aren't you just glad you work with adults now, right? And I'm going, do you really want the answer to that question? Because the truth is, it's probably going downhill. But anyway, that's where I was. And I shared this once in a TED Talk that what I used to do when I realized that I wanted to leave that particular space is I started to do impromptu keynotes in my classroom, in my grade 5 classroom, after all the children had gone. And I would just practice in an empty classroom to deliver a speech. And then as soon as I knew that this is what I wanted to do all day, every day, I looked around, as one does, on Google. Who are my people? Where are all of these people that are speaking on a continuous basis? And what did I find? I find us. Let me not say you, us. The people in this room. And so what did I do? I went over Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, KZN chapter. And I visited the chapter. And upon visiting the chapter, what did I find out? That very same year, the PSASA was hosting the Speaker Factor competition. And I thought, okay, this is fascinating. Maybe this is something I want to do, right? And what did I do? I put together my 5-minute talk. And here's what I've never shared with anyone before. But I used to practice that 5-minute talk every single day on average. But not just that. What I also used to do is I used to stand, because at the time I lived at home with my parents, and I used to stand in my dining room, or my mom's dining room really, and I used to call out my own name as if I was being announced as the winner, and then I would stand in surprise, and I would hear clapping, right? And then I would walk up to the front and go, me? Really? I've won? And I would accept my award, right? And so when it happened on the night, I was still surprised. But there was a part of me that had prepared myself, not because I knew I was going to win, but because I had already won. I knew that regardless of what happened at the Speaker Factor competition, I was a winner because of who I am and what I am prepared to do with the experience. And so now I want to go into something funny that happened the other day. Kav, you'll remember this. I shared something on LinkedIn, and Kavesan, who is a member of the KZN chapter, commented, and he said, "Oh, wow, Zanele, it is phenomenal." I think it was a post that you shared, Kav, and you said, "It's phenomenal. We're standing on the shoulders of giants." And I thought, is he talking about me? Firstly, I'm short. I don't know if you've... And I went, oh my goodness. But in that moment, I had to give myself an opportunity to go, wow, I have come far. Even if that's not as far as some of the people in this room, but I had come far, somewhat, right? So let me actually just warn you, if you don't like the look of my face, you're going to see a lot of me on this deck here. So just prepare yourself. But I thought that this is probably what he was thinking about. He was thinking about this Zanele, the Zanele whose business had won more than one business award. He was thinking about the Zanele who had a fake Instagram page. You know when you have a fake Instagram page, Graham, you know, then it means you're there, right? Because someone wants to see you, sort of. He was thinking about this version of me, but me, I was thinking of this girl. These pictures, I don't even want to look at them. Steph, you'll remember this was our showcase during COVID right at the top there. Terrible, my pink, purple curtains at the back. First time doing a virtual presentation. But this is the Zanele I was thinking about. And so when he made that comment to say that I had somehow paved the way for who he had become, it was a shock. But I had to realize in that moment that I had come, I think, far enough to be able to share something. So I want to share 4 key things with you that are somewhat lessons for me, that are things that I've learned, but also almost these stepping stones that I've found have been extremely valuable on my journey the entire time. But maybe before I do that, I want to just go back for a second to tell you what happened here. So here's the thing I didn't mention to you. When I entered the Speaker Factor competition in KZN, I was the only person at our chapter who even spoke and even competed. So I kind of won by default, guys. And so anyone who's going, wow, she came all the way from her own province to represent everyone. The truth is out. It's not the case, hey? It was me by default because the other guy didn't even show up. And so I had to go in there. And so what happened was I came through to our convention then in 2019. And as soon as I had an opportunity to give my talk, Steph, you remember I mentioned your name during the talk because I had somehow identified that you were someone that I could mention and everyone would know who you were. So I thought I would squeeze that into my talk. And then something terrible happened that I hadn't practiced for. The clock started, and then I asked the question, can I start? Who remembers that? Wow, no, Nikki. Oh. I was hoping no one was going to remember that. But Nikki remembers it. I asked, can I start? And no one said anything. And so what did I do? I started. And I went on with the rest of the talk, and that's pretty much it. And I like to say, not quite yet that the rest is history, but we went over to the gala dinner. It was announced I had won. And then during the break at the gala dinner, we're walking around, everyone is networking, and Graham Codrington came up to me. He said, I really love your talk. And we do something very similar at Tomorrow Today, because my talk was all about how skills that children have are actually skills of the future of work. Anything from curiosity to being inquisitive, to being frank, to creativity. And that was what the talk was about. And he said, we do something so similar at Tomorrow Today. How about we collaborate? I would love to work with you. And then he said, let me take your details, and then we'll see where this goes. I'll reach out to you. And I said, thank you very much. Well, I look forward to chatting to you, because I didn't know where it was going to go. And then as he was turning around, I realized I hadn't taken his details. And I went, whoa. Can I have your email? And he said, no, I will call you. And I thought, how mean. What a mean man. But he did eventually. And that's the point at which I can honestly say that the rest is history. And so here's where I'm going to now lead into those 5 key things that I think whatever your journey looks like, wherever you are, I often say that the basics work. And as you grow and as you expand and as you scale, what you end up realizing that it's all about doing the basics over and over again, at least from my end. So the very first thing is your brand is your business's heartbeat. And if you are in the marketing brand space, you will know just how true this is. If you are from KZN, or not even just from KZN, but you will know the township of Umlazi, which is where I grew up. Second largest township in South Africa. And one day I was walking with my mother in Umlazi, mega city. Anyone know of mega city? Beware. Mega city. Walking with my mom, mega city. We were shopping for things for a family function. And someone runs up to me, goes, "UnLearning." And then he runs off. I'm going, brand. Because what starts to happen when you build a powerful brand is people go, name, theme, problem, you. You, name, theme, problem. But not just that. I had another interesting experience where I was in France, where my going into ex-husband lives. And I got an email from someone from Coca-Cola Europe. And they said, "We want someone to speak about unlearning." And when we Googled unlearning, your name came up. And this is not now, this is in my 20s. I mean, I'm not that much older now. Hopefully you can see that. I don't even know if it's coming through. But here's the thing. They didn't eventually work with me because I was booked here in South Africa, so I couldn't show up. And so that was the end. But then, a year later, they came back and they said, "We still want to work with you because this is the topic we want." Funny enough, when I started in 2019, someone said to me, "Zanele, how are you going to speak about unlearning for the rest of your life?" And I'm still asking myself that question, but for now, I don't have to worry about it because it's still working. But the power really comes in when we can leverage our brand. Because one of the things that we do now at the Unlearners is we build all of our products, all of our offerings, all of our services around that key offering, that key theme and that key idea around unlearning. And this is just one of the examples around what we call our unlearning experience, which was our annual retreat that we are now running for the third time, and this year it's in Cape Town. So really excited about having it there. And it gives me an opportunity as well to not do all of the work within my business. We spoke a little bit about scale earlier on. Second thing, success leaves breadcrumbs, not actual blueprints. And oftentimes when we have great mentors that we look up to, we often go, how do I emulate? How do I do what this person has done? Because they're so aspirational and do it exactly like they've done. They started here, and then they went here, and then they went here, and then they went here. For example, when I started off, I remember Graham said, go ahead and speak to some of the phenomenal women in the speaking industry and find out a few things around dress code. Because I had asked, I don't know why I'd asked you, Graham, but I thought, you know what, let me just ask. And he said, speak to someone. But what I was told is, don't wear shoes that show your toes. Always wear certain kinds of shoes. Always wear this. Never wear that. And I thought it was fascinating. But also what I understood is that it had worked in their context for their business and the brands that they were trying to create. The next call then became, what is the brand I wanted to create? Who do I want to be? But also, what are the values that I want to show up for? And so the second picture, quite different from the very first one, is more aligned to me and how I wish to show up. But it takes time to know that. You don't come into this space just doing that, because depending on what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to do, it may not land as well the very first time. So that's the second one. Success leaves breadcrumbs. So you pick up the theme, pick up the values, and then you turn them into your own. Third one, I think that's because I'm a bit too close to the speakers. I'll stand there. Hopefully that helps. Build bridges before you need to cross them. That's the third one, probably one of my absolute favorites. This is a picture of the phenomenal human beings at the KZN chapter of the PSASA. And the reason why I share this for this theme is because as someone who is or has put myself in the box of introvert for years and years and years. I'll never forget, Brendan, I walked into a chapter meeting and you stood in front of all of us and you said, I love people. And I thought, ooh, ew, how can he say that in front of everyone? You said, I love people. Because as someone who has been an introvert or thought of myself as, oh, you know what, I like to stay away. Whenever I'm speaking anywhere, I'm the person who eats alone during lunch. Just because it's so awkward for me to have conversations with other people. Blink twice if that resonates. Spiwe, I was actually looking at you because I know you're that person with me. But when you said that, Brendan, you gave me permission to understand that the love of people is really at the foundation of not just building a thriving business or a thriving speaker career, but also of building something, just building anything and creating lasting relationships. So thank you very much. That stuck with me, and I hadn't told you that, but thank you very, very much for sharing it. And that's what we want to do. We want to build bridges. A key example around this, specifically from my journey, last year, you'll remember, raise your hand if you remember us having IODSA at last year's convention. They were part of the speaker panel, I remember. And this year I got an opportunity to do some great work. Juanita, you and I were speaking about it earlier on, and you said to me, Zanele, that was a terrible presentation on your end because the tech was not teching, if you know what I mean. But then funny enough, from that very same event, I had a conversation with the team at IODSA after we did LeaderX, and I said, you know what, I want to do more for you. Don't worry about paying me. And so I did something that they call their boardroom bites, where you come on for their bigger community. And from that, we've got some work that's going to last us an entire 12 years that is going to have our unlearning coach, 12 months, 12 years. Coming in, our unlearning coaches that we're now working with Commensa to credential and trademark, coming in to support an organization that's merging. It's phenomenal what you can do when you're going, let me just build a bridge. It's not about whether I'm going to walk that bridge in the next 10 months, or I'm going to walk that bridge in the next year, I'm going to walk it in the next 5 years. Just build those bridges. And when the time is right, you will see yourself walking them, and you're going to go, wow, I built that. I created the foundation for that. So very last one then, my personal favorite. Transformation happens in the moments when you say yes. Even when you feel nervous, even when you feel scared and things don't quite make sense. In 2023, after I'd started the Unlearners, we had our absolute worst year in business. I'm the type of business owner who does not like not to pay small businesses on time, because I absolutely hate it when people don't pay me on time. Yes? Anyone know what I mean? Taryn, I never thought I'd hear you say hate. But yes, right? Absolutely annoying. But in 2023, because of the state we were in as a business, it was so tough. But funny enough, in that very same year, 3 very important things happened. 1, we launched what we now call our Unlearning Children Foundation, a foundation that's based around lowering the suicide rates within the African continent. Because globally, according to the World Health Organization, we know that Africa has the highest suicide rates, but more especially within that group of our adolescents, right? Because their bodies are changing, things are happening. And as someone who has had that experience myself, I've always wanted to do it. So I thought, you know what? Why not? And that's one of the things we did. The other thing we did was we launched our podcast, where we host these phenomenal conversations with other unlearners. And the final thing that we did in the year when I should have been holding my breath is we also launched our retreat. In that very same year, we had the very first retreat, but now it's been a consistent thing that people ask about it. When can I come to your retreat next? And how do I support you? And so that, for me, is such a great example of how in the moments when you want to say no, in the moments where it feels like, and we had a phenomenal conversation about the comfort zone, in the moments where you want to stay in the comfort zone, you want to push yourself out, because those are the moments when you win. This, for me, was a huge highlight last year. If you follow me or we're connected on LinkedIn, you'll remember this. But it was a beautiful affirmation because I got to sit in a room with leaders like your Prof. Thuli Madonsela and have her go over my numbers for my business and ask me how I plan to scale and how big my team is and who's part of my team and what are our systems and what's our project and task management tool. And I had to stand there and go, ooh, okay, I like this. Because it wasn't just the winning of the competition, but it was who I became. And I think when I think back to my journey, it's not the tiny little wins necessarily, but it's to be able to go back on that entire journey and go, wow, look at who we get to become by sitting in these rooms, by having conversations with each other, by just showing up and using some of these key insights. We don't just necessarily win in terms of our top and bottom lines, but we become these phenomenal individuals that get to make a superb impact. So really quickly as I close off, 1, your brand is your business's heartbeat. Secondly, success leaves breadcrumbs and not blueprints. So don't expect a blueprint. Even when someone says, I know this works, yes, it may, but take it with a pinch of salt, because we can only ever speak from where we are, nowhere else. The third thing, build bridges before you ever need to cross them. And the final one, transformation happens in the moments when you say yes. To close off, I want to tell you a very funny story. In 2019, as many of us do, when we are trying to build our speaking businesses, we go to the bureaus. Raise your hand if you're a big fan of speaker agencies and speaker bureaus. Woohoo! Wow, guys. Anyway, so what did I do? I sent my beautiful pink profile that I'd created myself from my grade 5 classroom, and I sent it to a bureau. Won't mention their name. They're not my absolute favorite right now to work with, but I sent it through to them, and they didn't respond to me. They didn't respond to me. The only time the bureau ever responded to me was when a client asked them for me a few years later. And that's when I learned one of my pivotal lessons, that bureaus don't create demand, they manage it. But also, it's the point I want to close off on, that the basics work. Wherever you are, and now at the moment as we start to grow at the Unlearners, when I sit with the coach, all they're telling me is the basics and how you need to rework all of those foundational things. So that's the final thing I want to leave you with. Yes, those 4 key things that I learned are foundational, but at the end of the day, we all know the basics. So if you feel like you're growing right now, go back to those basics and rework them. Thank you.
Stay here. Thank you so much, Zanele, finishing our Saturday convention on a high. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your insights. And it just goes to show you what happens when you win the speaker factor. And it's really, you've really taken the most of that opportunity. And congratulations where you are today. 6 years later, it's been an amazing journey. And thank you for sharing it with us. And thank you for sharing your learning as well. So thank you from the convention committee. Thank you very much, Zanele.